Hi all. Today I'm joined by Bradley Simpson, a fairly new member of the Trifactri team, but someone who is already making his name known on the local and international triathlon scene. Welcome, Bradley.
Hey, Garen. Hi, man. Nice to be on air with you today.
Yeah, excellent. Bradley, I'm going to go back to your younger years first because, school and university, because I don't think you wake up at the age of 40 and have a competitive streak. So maybe you can take us down your younger years stories, what sports you played, and where you feel you got your competitive edge from.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, so I mean, I've growing up as a youngster in South Africa, always had an absolute love for both watching and participating in sport. Played pretty much all the school sports. Dabbled in a bit of cricket. You wouldn't think with my height that rugby wouldn't have been my first choice, but growing up in an English community, soccer was usually the first choice. And I can put it out there, I'm a Man United supporter, so let's get that clear from the outset. So I know what the dark times look like. I know what the times of success look like, and I know what the current looks like. So I mean, I played school football. Grew up in a very competitive schooling environment. Some top footballers in the time. Also did a lot of athletics, specifically through primary school, competing English schools against the Afrikaans schools. English schools always been on the back foot. So it was always the striving to beat some of the better Afrikaans athletes that were out in the time. And my disciplines of choice were usually around the middle distance events. Sort of could sprint a bit, but the 1,200 meters was kind of my go-to. And usually was a sort of a third, fourth placed athlete in most of the school events and that. So that's where my interest in running probably started developing. As I said, played soccer. My dad also was a keen baseballer, and I was introduced at a young age to baseball. So I played t-ball from a young age, right from I think under 8 all the way through to under 16s, and also played 1 or 2 years in Major League. Broke a leg playing the game. Kind of put me off the game to an extent. Managed to represent Eastern Transvaal, so was able to compete at a higher level, if you like, within the sporting arena. And if I look back, I spent quite a bit of time as a youngster, just going out for a casual run. So used to be a 5K run here and maybe an 8K run there. And there used to be I grew up in the East Rand, so a Boksburg boy through and through. Believe it or not, I did have shoes. There were times I didn't wear shoes, but most of the time I had shoes. So went out, used to do the Boksburg time trial on a Wednesday evening, 5K, 8K. Ambition was always to try and find my name in the newspaper within the top 5 or 10. So always having a look in terms of whether I was running at the same level as some of the older athletes or some of the other more competitive youngsters as well. And I also belonged to the Sunrit Striders cycling club at a point in time, and I rode casually with a couple of mates for a couple of years. Did 1 or 2 races. The Discem Ride for Cy. Didn't necessarily take on too much focus on the cycling side. Did a couple of the Saturday 20K time trials, but that was pretty much it in terms of my overall cycling. But also a keen golfer from a young age. Belonged to ERPM Golf Club for 18 years. A further, 14, 15 years at Royal Johannesburg in Kensington. Managed to play off, I think, as low as a 2 or 3 handicap. And I actually ceded my membership at the end of last year to actually focus on triathlon. Giving a break to the game of golf. My mates aren't very happy with me, and I'm still having to apologize for that. But pretty much finished up the game at handicap in the vicinity of a 6 to 8 handicap. So I know what it is to compete on a Saturday. I know what it is to sort of have the banter and the urge and the will to want to sort of improve. And for me, that's always been my mantra, is in terms of how good could I be. So how hard can I push myself to sort of become a better golfer, or to achieve better times when I'm doing my runs, or whatever the case may be. So I suppose that's where sort of the underlying competitive nature came in, Garen.
And in terms of inspirations or motivations when you were young, parents, coaches, in anything like that pushed you forward to realizing that you were always, or you could always be better than you were?
No, so I mean, I didn't really take on any serious level of coaching. You know, my folks were always there, supportive in terms of whatever sporting event or sporting code it was that I was competing in. You know, I remember my dad vehemently shouting from the sides of a baseball field, cursing the umpire, getting tossed out of one or two games. So, you know, obviously actively participating parents, but at the same time, nowhere near sort of pushing me to sort of succeed. I think that all came from internal. You know, so I looked at high performing athletes, you know, whether it was in the soccer arena, you know, so as I said, being an avid Man United supporter, you know, someone like a Brian Robson, you know, a hard footballer, someone that dedicated his life to a club, you know, gave his all on the pitch. You know, I looked at those kind of athletes. You know, Lance Armstrong for me growing up was obviously one of those core athletes that I think we can all resonate positively or negatively with. Yes. And, you know, I think, you know, watching the likes of the Tour de France and, you know, sort of drawing inspiration from high performing athletes and really looking at in terms of what it takes to get to those levels, what it means to actually push oneself, and actually realizing what can be achieved, you know, if one actually puts their mind to it at the end of the day.
Yeah. And then I love this story. You went off to university at Rau to study sports management in order to manage Ernie Els, which is that's fantastic. But what I really want to know is at what point you decided to turn Ernie down.
If only. So yeah, I mean, you know, I think coming through a school environment, one has different and varied ideas as you go through your matric year in terms of what it is that you really want to do in the course of study. So unless you know that law or medical or whatever the case is your arena, you know, I was more inclined in saying what could I do within the sporting space, and you know, sport was just moving into the professional era. You know, the golf environment was probably one of the few really professional sports codes at that stage. In rugby, hadn't moved into the professional arena as of yet. You know, in 1992. You know, so I looked at golf and I thought, geez, you know, IMG, Mark McCormack International, you know, they have these big accounts managing top athletes, you know, the likes of Michael Jordan's, the top golfers. And I thought, yeah, can you imagine, you know, sort of setting up the events and managing a top athlete, you know, being that guy that makes the decisions, works with the athlete, finding what is the next tournament that they're going to be at, you know, managing the PR, the press side of things, you know, sort of the limelight, I suppose, in many ways as well. So there was a bit of the glitz and glamour attached to that. And, you know, as I went through, you know, so I went to Johannesburg University, or Randse Afrikaanse Universiteit, which was at the time, and you know, believe it or not, an English boy here, studied probably 85% of my curricula in Afrikaans. So that was an interesting time in my life. It was only Rau and Stellenbosch that actually offered the curricula, a BCom sports management degree. And through there, as I was progressing, I realized, you know, probably this is going to lead me to working in the then health and racket environment, or the Virgin Active space as a coach or a fitness coach, or maybe move into biokinetics at some point in time. And I really looked at this and I thought, yeah, I'm not too sure if that's where I really want to be working. I spent some time in my last year in 1995 with the Rugby World Cup in South Africa, actually with the Springbok rugby team. Working for Wanderers Rugby Club, helped them run some of the training camps. So I had the privileges of meeting the full Springbok squad on 2 or 3 occasions at Wanderers Rugby Club, as well as the New Zealanders. Those were the days of Jonah Lomu, Zinzan Brook, and I mean, you know, to shake those guys' hands and stand in the midst of greatness and sit next to Francois Pienaar in a change room after a practice was kind of really awe-inspiring. And I thought, you know, I don't know if my degree is necessarily going to give me the ability to actually do this, because I don't think the sporting codes are necessarily developed sufficiently to have that big picture that I was envisaging at that stage, that maybe the international arena offered up. And by absolute default, through a Sunday Times article picked up, you know, those were the days when you looked at the back of the Sunday Times and you look for a job, and there was this thing called medical representative, and I looked at what the requirements were, and I said, well, perhaps I can do this, and there started 25 years in the pharmaceutical industry for me.
And in those 25 years, you started a family. You have 4 children, including triplets. So there was obviously not much time to train or pursue your sporting interest other than, I assume, the occasional round of golf with the lads.
Absolutely. And maybe you're being kind in terms of saying the occasional. I was pretty religious. I was fortunate. I had a very understanding wife, or maybe I was just very forceful in terms of what it was that I was pursuing. But I pretty much got out most Saturdays. So maintained that camaraderie of mates. But yeah, I mean, it was tough times. And Garen, I look back and I think in leading up to having triplets, which obviously was my second marriage. So I've got a daughter who's 18 years of age. Just got a driver's license. So we've just got a car, and we've got all those joys that come with that. But I'm building on a closer relationship with her now. The triplets are 13 years of age. At that time, I weighed a massive 118 kilograms, I think it was. I'm a 6'5" guy, but able to probably hide it in a couple of places that some of the shorter guys can't. But at the same time, I mean, I look back and I say, 118 kilos back to what I am today, between 86 and 88 kilos. Life had treated me well over that time. There was no thought of sort of putting on a pair of running shoes and going out for a run, or actually worrying about the physical condition. But I think at the back of my mind, both my wife and I, and my wife also comes from a very sporty background. Susan, she's she represented Northern Transvaal in school athletics, high jump. So also has a high level of competitiveness. Physical, I think at one stage when I met her, she was training twice a day in the gym, general fitness, cardio classes, spinning, etc., etc. So, all of that fell away as soon as three kids arrived on our doorstep. And, it was probably only after the first, and we probably defined it actually quite clearly after 8 years, that we actually said we have to reclaim our lives. And we have to pull back a little bit of Brad and a little bit of Susan. And, kind of that's where I think our physical activities re-engaged or reignited again.
According to you, that was around about when you were 40, sitting in the middle of Africa, you decided to hop on a treadmill and somehow ramp up your competitive side again. It looks like it didn't take long for you to get back up to some sort of fitness where you could start doing half marathons, Saturday runs. It seems like Susan joined you for most of those. And I think with everything, if you're going to turn your life around, it is great to have somebody who's going to do it for you, because there's obviously motivation from both sides. And there's always times where we feel like not doing something, and to be dragged out of the house is an awesome way to make a start back into the sports.
Yeah, most definitely. And, I always say that I'm absolutely privileged that, I've been able to sort of get back into a journey in terms of reclaiming a level of fitness, a level of competitive sports edge alongside my wife. And, we both undertook the journey together. I happened to be, as I say, traveling in Africa 2 weeks out of a month, out of country, in and out of hotels, on airplanes. 104 flights over a 24-month period. It was crazy. And, I thought, I have to get some resemblance of physical activity going. So, it started off with a 2-3K run on a treadmill. Some of the worst treadmills you've probably seen, whether it was in Lagos, whether it was in Mombasa, whether it was, in Sudan, in Khartoum. But at the same time, it offered me the opportunity of also just clearing the mind. And from there, we kind of said, well, how do we do our first longer run? And we said, well, maybe enter a 10K race. And I can't recall actually which race it was. We entered a 10K race, and happened on that Sunday morning. We woke up and it was piddling down with rain. And we looked at each other and we said at 4 o'clock, I think it was, are we really going to do this thing as our first? And we said, no, we're not. And that was our first race, cancelled there and then due to weather conditions. So we were a bit soft then. But, a couple of months or a couple of weeks later was the MTN. And we said, okay, let's peg the first 10K as that. And we happened to go out on a longer Sunday run, and we ended up doing, I think, 16 or 17 Ks together. And Susan said to me the next week, she says, why don't we just do the 21? I said, you mad? We're going to go run a half marathon. We've never done a 10K race before. Like, what are you talking about? She said, no, come on, man. And I said, yeah, I kind of thought, no, never going to happen. Came back the one evening, and there our entry was on the table. She says, I've changed it. We're doing the 21. So, yeah, the MTN 21 half marathon was our first, and first of a couple, so we actually did a fair number of 21s in the first actual couple of months. That progressed to saying, hey, can we get a marathon under the belt? And, we pegged the PE Aspen Marathon actually as the first marathon, sea level. So we said we'll be kind to ourselves, and went down and did that. Actually, we were in relatively good training condition. And I can actually remember having a discussion with one or two mates the day before. The jitters were going, not knowing what a 42K run would necessarily look like, and having never really run much more than probably 28Ks at that point in time. And actually landed up, both Susan and I both had really good first marathons. I ran, I think, a 3:28. So I was really stoked by that. I remember being about 16 Ks into the race, running with a young lady, and she looked magnificent in her stride, and she was so comfortable. And she said to me, what is your time? So I said, no, look, I'm really looking at getting under 4 hours. So she said to me, you better slow down, mate, because you're never going to make 4 hours at this pace. So, it's those kind of stories. And, from there, Soweto Marathon, I missed a Johnson Crane due to injury. Susan did that, and we progressed to looking at saying, hey, trail running looks pretty cool. I did a couple of oxpeckers, so the trail run stage races, usually I think about a 21K on the Saturday up into the Drakensberg. And then usually the Sunday finishing with a 16, 17K run. So we did a couple of those. We did a couple out in the south, a couple at Walter Sisulu, and really enjoyed that. Then I don't know how it all progressed, but then suddenly I think we probably saw on TV. I saw Ironman, and I always knew there was triathlon, but kind of started intriguing me, saying wow, like. Could this be? Could you start pushing yourself further than just doing a run? Could you actually get into a pond and go and swim? And I did some swimming at school, but nothing serious. So I defined myself as a non-swimmer. So that was quite daunting. The thought of doing a swim. I said, well, I've ridden a bicycle before, so it couldn't be that difficult to do that. And actually, on the Sunday that we finished our last Oxpecker, we actually said in that, I think it was the March, April, why don't we peg the next Bella 5150 as our first triathlon? And we hooked in that date, and that's where the triathlon dream started.
And you picked up a few online training programs, spoke to a good mutual friend of ours, Christian Fiesel, and he set you on your way in terms of trying to get through your first Bella.
Garen, exactly. It was a little uncanny because when I phoned Christian, I said, "Hey, Chris, it's been a long time, mate, and I've been following you in terms of his progress. I'm obviously doing what is it, 15 or 16 consecutive Ironman. So he's one of the legends, if you would like, of Ironman South Africa." Where do I start? And, he said, well, look, mate, have you got a bicycle? I said, no, not yet. He said, well, maybe you need to look at getting yourself a bike. So I said, okay, that's good. And then when I've got a bike, what else do I need? And we kind of ran through sort of this strange discussion. And I sat down, I made a couple of notes, said, okay, well, I've obviously got to start with equipment. So let's get the equipment right. And then, Susan, she went online and she said, well, I found us some Ironman training programs. This is what we're going to be doing. She mapped it out. She drew up calendars for the next 3 months, and we hooked ourselves in. And, she was, if you would like, the coach that pulled together the program. And yeah, we led up to Bella Bella, and we went around and around in the pond, and managed up finishing. And I think I finished that Bella Bella, and I think it was a 2:28 or something like that as my first race, which was good fun. I had no idea whether that was a good time, bad time. All I just knew is I managed to finish it, and there was great sense of achievement, and absolutely loved every minute of it, especially once I was out of the water.
Look, there's a lot of people going to be listening to this and saying, well, at 40, you turned your life around. You've run a sub 3:30 marathon on your first attempt. You've got out of Bella Bella at 2:28. How did you miss 20 years of your life training? In terms of that, have you ever looked back and thought, what if I'd started this at 25?
Garen, I don't think there's a week that doesn't go by that I don't sort of sit on the bike or be in the middle of a run going, man, if I only knew what I knew now, and I was able to apply myself when the body was younger, the body was stronger, and had the ability to probably recover a lot quicker than what it has the ability to do right now. Where could we have been? Where could this have been? And looking back, and growing up, I think being interested in sports, you start looking back at the names like the likes of the Glenn Gores, and having heard about triathlon but never having understood anything about it. You look at those guys, and those guys have been in the sport for 30 odd years, and and I go, wow, there was a missed opportunity there, and I just wish that I had somehow found triathlon, or triathlon had found me earlier. And even looking at Chris Fiesel, I mean, Chris and I have drunk under tables together. We've fallen asleep in the back of cars together. We've done many crazy things, but we've never done triathlon together, and that's a strange thing. And kind of I think as one grows up in the early years, you kind of take on priorities in different areas, and I suppose my work took first priority, and then as family came along. But most definitely, man, if I could do it again, triathlon would be at the forefront and center of my sporting curricula.
So you've now done Bella Bella, and you decide to, I think, approach Lucy at this stage,
Yes.
and try and move under a more sort of structured coaching, so that, well, you obviously had your eye on a few of the world championships, because they were certainly on their way to you. What was the decision, and why Lucy?
So I have to be absolutely clear. I gave Lucy a bit of a blow off the first time round. So after Bella Bella was early the following year, January, we did Trinity, which was the CGT qualifiers for essays. Managed to qualify for that, and my wife said, "What is it that you're going to go do? Do you want to go do nationals? I mean, what do you know? You're competing against people that have been doing triathlon." I said, "Well, I don't know. Let me just go and do it." And anyway, managed to get through essays, and I gave Lucy a call, and I thought, maybe this is the time I actually need to take on a sort of a coach. I need to engage myself into a triathlon community. I need to find a team. I looked around, and there was 180, and there was all these names that I knew absolutely nothing about, but I'd heard about Lucy Zelenkova, and Gerard Fischer, who I worked with at the time as well, said, "Hey, dude, you can't go wrong with Lucy. This is someone that you have to give a call, but understand, she's going to push you hard, and she's going to put you into dark places that you never knew that you could go to." And I said, yeah, sure. Anyway, I had the first discussion with her. I was trying to understand what was what at that point in time, and kind of things just, I don't know. I didn't lock anything in, and I went into my first 70.3 self-trained, actually trained by Susan with the same training program methodology, put it all into a calendar, and we followed that training program. Did my first 70.3, I think finished 4 hours 50 odd. So I was pretty happy with that. And in leading up to that, I'd also qualified then for at essays. I competed in the March for essays and qualified for the ITU World Champs in Lausanne, Switzerland, in the September. And I thought, okay, look, dude, if you're going to take this thing seriously, you need to get a coach now. So I picked up the phone and said, Luce, I know I kind of blew you off the first time, just sort of let things go. And she said, yeah, I wondered where you disappeared to. And we had the discussion, and yeah, signed up there and then, and became a Trifactri athlete. And I believe she told me early on that the pink and blue does make you race faster, and I'm a firm believer of that. Once you put on that tri-suit and the Trifactri tri-suit, I don't know, you just feel a whole lot faster. And so Luce really sort of got me into the right mindset in terms of offering a lot more structured workouts, putting a disciplined, not that it wasn't disciplined previously, but a really disciplined, structured plan into place leading up to World Champs. I had an all right World Champs. I had a shocking swim. I may as well have been doing doggy paddle, I felt like. Got out the water. I was so far behind at that point. But yeah, had a goodish bike, had a decent run, and finished, I think, 69th in my age group out of 190 odd athletes. I was happy to have been competing and had the privilege of actually representing, South Africa at an ITU global event. And Lucy continues to tell me that 69 could have been 49 had I not blown off the first time. So she also then coined a bit of a nickname that, it should be Mr. 69 and could have been 49. So that's where I first engaged with Lucy and obviously Trifactri, Gareth.
And that was 2019?
That was 2019, yeah, that's it. So
after the World Champs, you obviously had qualified, I think, for Nice already.
Yeah, so I actually through the Ironman 70.3 Durban, I got a rollback position for Nice, which I didn't take up. I didn't have the capacity from a work perspective to do both Lausanne and then the following week Nice. But I was really, really fortunate. So I looked at that and I thought, hey, I'm not going into a race sort of as a first race and sort of even been able to accomplish that, even if it's on a rollback. I thought, hey, this is something for the future. So this is what I've clearly got locked into my mind, that at some point in time, my clear structured ambition is that a world championship is 70.3 is where I want to be. And I want to be super competitive going into that.
Yeah, and that's an excellent way to look at it. And the fact that you've been over to Switzerland, you've competed against the best in the world already. Just that knowledge and that exposure is going to be of so much value when you're actually prepared and wanting to be super competitive. I was humbled the first time I went to a world championship, so much so that it was almost embarrassing, and I didn't want to go to anything more, because coming out of South Africa, I was certainly in a headspace where I certainly didn't deserve to be. But it was soon back to earth, and the people I've been around, Lucy has always kept me in that kind of humble headspace. That obviously leads on to Ironman, COVID-19, the future, where you've just mentioned that obviously you want to go and do the 70.3 World Championships as competitively as possible. But from what I understand, Ironman would then be the final goal.
Yeah, so Garen, I was really fortunate and privileged enough to have competed as my last, let's call it, official race in February 2020 at Ironman Dubai 70.3, which was just an absolute privilege to be part of, and it's an experience of very few, I think, globally at a 70.3 type event, based on the setup of the event, the general hospitality of the Emiratis hosting the event, the setting, going into a swim at the base of the Burj Al Arab, running along the promenade, racing on some of the fastest tar surfaces that you can on a 70.3. It's a real privilege. So you were talking about being privileged and being humbled by being able to take part in these type of events. And for me that 70.3 was definitely that. You can see I've got my Dubai 70.3 cap on at the moment. But for me that was sort of really, for the first time, I really understood where I could possibly be competing in terms of my training. My training going into that was really good. It was sound, but it wasn't the end goal. The end goal was Ironman South Africa in the March, and everything was leading up to that. So 70.3, if you would like, was basically a test to see where I was at. And, I was really happy to see where I was at. Posted a time of 4:25, I think it was. Running my fastest in race 21K, did a 1 hour 29 run, which equaled my Two Oceans 21K time from the year before. So, from that point of view, I was like really amped, and knowing that I was going to go meet the big brother, and the big brother is still today the ultimate goal, because as we know, March never took place, deferred to November, and November never took place, and March this year never took place or will not take place, and November it is again. And I keep on joking with people. I say I'm still training for my Ironman. I'm still training for my Ironman, but I get up most days, and that fire burns hard and strong. Is in terms of saying this is an opportunity, because the opportunity is to actually become stronger right now. The opportunity is to work on some of those areas where I probably wasn't ready 2020 March, and I probably would have felt some of the pains of a full Ironman. I think mentally I'm in probably a better position now to understand what that race may throw up, and I don't think unless you're in there you will really know. So I'm not jaded by the illusions of being prepared to that extent until such a time as I've endured what needs to be endured on that race. Physically, in terms of the work that Lucy's done in terms of building the bike, she said to me from day one, she says, we're going to have to work on those legs. Those skinny little legs need some serious muscles, and we're going to have to get you on some serious bike time. And I think the bike time has done a lot of good. I think COVID lockdown, has also introduced us to a different kind of training regime. And I must say, I'm very much sold on the Zwift indoor training. And I know that you're quite a strong advocate of that. I think there's a lot to be said about the relentlessness of a Zwift session versus a cruise through the cradle, if you would like. Okay. I think you can push yourself to a different type of level on an indoor training type program. Not dismissing, obviously, the joys of being outdoors, but at the same time, there's many a benefit that I think has been taken through, sort of a blended type training setup through the lockdown. So yeah, I'm really locked in right now in terms of a November 21st timeline. However, there are a couple of short-term goals. So we've got SA Nationals 5150 coming up in Bloemfontein at Marcelspoort on the 21st of March. So that'll be a good test in terms of a sprint event, if you would like, just to test where the pace and the speed is at. But yeah, pretty much moving forward. Hopefully, fingers crossed that November is a real realization for us.
Yeah, I think to have what's been 3 disappointments now of postponed dates and everything. And I think this goes back to what you mentioned right at the start of this conversation, and that's that your inspiration came from within. There was no one who motivated you to get out of bed in the morning. And I think there's a massive difference that you have, as you say, that fire burning inside you, that every day you're concentrating, or you have that goal. A lot of people are looking for motivation. A lot of people are looking for outs, but it's that inspiration that gets you there. I, as a coach, can only tell you, put your shoes on that often. If you're not going to do it, even Susan could kind of say, I'm going for a run. And if you're really not inspired yourself, it's just not going to happen. So I think the fact that you've gone through 3 disappointments in not actually racing, and you're still as hungry for the hopeful date in September is a great thing. How much do you think the Trifactri team, what you're doing with Lucy, adds to that? In terms of, a lot of people need a race to see how they're progressing. You've obviously internalized it, and you can see day on day, or at least week on week, how that progress is happening, because for me that would be the only thing that would be left to drive me to see a personal progress, regardless of whether there's a race or a time or a PB involved.
Yeah. So I think part of that question that sort of resonates most strongly with me is in terms of being part of a sense of community, in terms of Trifactri, being part of a club. I'm not sort of one of the absolute socialites that make sure that I'm at each club run or at each club session, etc., etc. And I think just sort of I'm at a different time in terms of where my thinking is around my training and that. But yes, do I like to get out on a Saturday ride with the guys? Have a good chat, find out where they're at with regards to their training. What are their goals, their ambitions. It sort of also allows me to sort of recalibrate some of my thinking around one or two things as well, which is great. So it's really about that sense of community. And at the end of the day, I think we've all suffered disappointments through this period of COVID. So mine has been maybe Ironman South Africa. Others have been actually getting their first race under their belt. So there's many athletes that haven't had the opportunity to actually get a solid race done as of yet. And I think there were a lot of people that have said, hey, Durban 70.3 last year was my first 70.3 race, and that hasn't materialized. So I think everyone's fighting their own, if you would like, internal demons to maintain the levels of motivation, the levels of commitment. But sometimes even Garen, I'll be honest with you. Come end of November, I fell ill with a gastroenteritis, and I missed the Joburg Ultra. And let me tell you, I was so bummed, and it took me 3 weeks to get over my bumness. I fell into a bit of a mental thing of saying, what am I doing this for? Why? I've missed the last possible race. It's kind of not making sense to me anymore. And I kind of got down on myself, I think, and I kind of just needed to pull my head out of the sand and get back to things. And I think all of us as athletes go through those, due to personal circumstances, due to whatever they may be. And I think it's always a case of can you use the people around you to recenter yourself, re-energize yourself in terms of what it is what you're doing and why is it that you're doing it. Sometimes you just need to look at Strava and you look at I'm going to use a couple of random names, whether it's a Dundre or a Tennille or a Elise or whoever it is, in terms of doing some great Sunday runs and some fantastic swim sets. And you look at these guys and you say, hey man, dude, you've got so much more to give. And for me, that's where I draw some of my inspiration from my colleagues and my teammates at the end of the day as well. And when I see Dom Gard do a light 15K run and he's running it at 4:45s and he probably didn't break a sweat, then I look at that and I go, okay, dude, you've got to keep on pushing. You got to keep yourself positive and get yourself back into the right mindset. And I think also, all of us in different spaces find different motivations. And, one of my motivations as well is, my 3 kids. And, they'll often say to me, oh, Dad, you're going to train again? And I say, yeah, I'm going to train again. And they go, oh, good luck, Dad. How long are you training for? And I said, no, it's an hour and a half. One of my daughters always says, is that all you're doing? Can't you make it a little bit more? I said, no, Lucy says, but don't tell Lucy, you can just do a bit more, do an hour and 45 or do 2 hours. So, they see this positive reinforced behavior taking place. And I think for me, that's also a sort of a spin-off into the family environment, which is key for me as well.
Yeah, and certainly I know Josh has joined us on 1 or 2 rides too. So, it is an inspiration for him, and it's setting them up with a good role model. And I think, if anything, if you can inspire just one person in your life, it's job done.
Yeah, and I think, Garen, there's a key point in that, and just racing, or going to 1 or 2 of the Trinity events, where you see the youngsters racing, and if you can keep them motivated, they're the next Trifactri athletes. They're the next ones, that Lucy's going to be talking to and putting a program into place and helping them reach their ambitions. And I think it all starts at a point. And the fact is that each Trifactri member has committed themselves to be part of this because they have a specific goal or ambition or focus that they want to be part of. Is is absolutely fantastic. And as a club, we should really sort of acknowledge ourselves for that. And I'm of the firm belief, and I think we all carry different biases, but I wouldn't want any other coach other than Lucy Zelenkova as my coach right now, steering me towards what's going to be my first hell on earth come 21st of November.
All I can say about November is that when it does happen and you end up on that red carpet, there is nothing I have done or will do in triathlon that will beat that first red carpet moment. It was absolutely phenomenal. There was no decent time involved, no expectations involved. But when I hit that red carpet, as I say, regardless of what I end up doing in triathlon, if I end up doing anything, there is nothing like that moment, and no one can take that away from you. And yeah, you will have done it all by yourself. If anything, I really hope that it all sorts itself out, that the vaccine somehow allows us to race and travel again. And who knows, maybe one day we'll all be racing in an event somewhere around the world. So in terms of ending it off and you being as competitive as you are, you've already been to an Olympic distance world champs. You've qualified for a half Ironman world champs. There is the big one in Kona. Would that be the final dream?
It's a dream I'm not allowing myself to have yet. And I think I will only allow myself to have that once I know what it is to complete my first Ironman. And it's something that I haven't allowed to come into my mind. It's flitted around in the background, but I need to get through a first Ironman, and maybe I need to get through a second Ironman. And at that point in time, then I think I need to then say, what is it that I want, and is Kona part of that ambition? I suppose the easy answer would have been, of course, because it's the pinnacle. It's the epitome of the sport that we so dearly love. But I want to be cautious. After all, I'm 46. I'm heading onto the wrong side of the red scale at the moment. So, but no, I'm really taking it at this stage, I think, in a more stepwise approach. But am I ambitious? Absolutely. But let's be humble in getting through the big races, and then let's refocus ourselves in terms of what that ambition can really look like.
I think that's a good attitude. I was fortunate in my first Ironman event. I didn't actually know it was a global event. I thought it was a South African event where somebody was challenging me to ride 180 kilometers, and I thought that was absolutely insane. I didn't know there was a professional body that was set up. So I went into it completely blind. It was just to compete or to complete my first race. So I think the way you're approaching it is the best way, and I think you'll get the best result because of that. There'll be no pressure or anything around that. So Brad, thanks very much for joining us. It's been a good chat this afternoon. Hope you've enjoyed it. Good luck for this year. Good luck for the upcoming races, and hopefully we can race again in November.
Garen, thanks some more for the opportunity. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you, and thanks for hosting me.